get out and vote early if possible. And more importantly, get to know your local candidates. We're impacted more by our city council, our school boards, our water district, our state senator, our assembly person, much more so than we are with the national people. Well, let's not forget our congressman in there. But right now, what we decided to do is we're going to have a candidate forum focusing on College of the Canyons. With me in the studio is Scott Schauer, who is running for the candidate area number 2 against the incumbent who is not showing up. That's why you don't see her sitting here next to us. But we invited her to join us. Also, we said it was not going to be a debate, that we were going to write out questions for everybody. She chose not to be here, but Scott, thank you so much for showing up.
Thank you so much for having me, and it is unfortunate she's not here. It would have been nice for us to both share our views and what our ideas for the future for the college are. And I would open it up to her that if it's here or anywhere else at any time, I would love to sit down and let the community know where I'm coming from.
Exactly. And once again, we're not doing this as a debate. We're not do it as a debate. Do it simply as a way for everybody to get informed. Well, tell us a little bit about you. I've known you for a number of years, but wearing a different hat.
We both wore different hats in a lot of different areas. 49 years ago, I attended COC, and I was a student body vice president at COC. I was 17 years old. And
back when you had hair, right?
Back when I had hair, and it was other than white, yeah. And in the good days, yeah, back then when we were young. But anyways, I attended the college, and that's when I first fell in love with the college and also the love of the community in Santa Clarita. My parents moved away when I was 18, and it was time for me. I had to be on my own. So I moved up to Santa Clarita when I was 18, and I've been here ever since. I bought my first home in Agua Dulce when I was 21, and have lived in Valencia ever since. I moved there about 20 years ago. I've served on a lot of different foundations. In fact, that's where we met you. You and Jerry both were such big parts of the Michael Hoefflin Foundation. And when I first joined as a volunteer, you were very active in that organization. I became very active and then became the executive director and helped with the Michael Hoefflin Foundation for years. I was on the College of the Canyons Foundation board, the SCV Youth Project board, and currently I'm the president of the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff's Foundation, which is an honor to sit in that position and be able to help make a difference for the community there. I've supported the Child and Family Center, YMCA, Carousel Ranch, Boys and Girls Club. I'm an active community member, and I'm blessed to be able to give back to the community as they have for me. Currently, I own the Santa Clarita Soccer Center. I've owned that for over 30 years, and I've owned other businesses in the past also.
And the soccer center used to be on Soledad, the open soccer center over by the bowling alley.
Right.
You owned it, and then it got moved over to the industrial center.
Yeah, and thank God we have a great city, and they help work all that out. We had it there for 25 years, and then they built houses right next door, and the new homeowners weren't happy with it. So we made a move that made them happy and made our customers happy, and it worked out good for everybody.
Scott Schauer is our guest on KHTS. He's running for College of the Canyons School Board. And this year, Scott, it's very unique that actually we had a unique situation, and all 5 trustees were either up for election and were supposed to be up for election, but Joan McGregor decided to retire past the deadline to run, even though she knew she was going to retire. And so now we're faced with 4 candidates because Joan's replacement was selected.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. This is a community college, and I think it's the community that should be selecting who is on the board of trustees. It's unfortunate. I heard 6 months before that she was going to retire, and she announced that she was going to retire. She even asked when is the deadline to retire for it to go on the ballot, and she chose to retire after that deadline so the few people on the board can select somebody. And I don't know Carlos. He is the new trustee in that area, and I look forward to working with him. But the truth of the matter is I think it's the community that should select who runs the college, not just a few board members.
For those who don't know, our local elections have been divided up into certain districts and areas. Back in the days, Scott, when you and I first came here, it was one big valley.
Right.
But now everything is divided up from city council, water districts, and of course, College of the Canyons. You're in Area 2. What does that cover?
Area 2 is big parts of Valencia and Saugus. Basically, anything between McBean and the 5 is Area 2, and anything north of Copper Hill is in Area 2. So it's a big area, and we're doing our best to reach out to as many in the area to let them know the issues and what's going on with the college.
And there are pros and minuses to dividing it up. What do you think are the differences?
Well, I'm telling you, it is difficult to get to 15,000 houses divided into 5 areas. I really look back at those that had to cover this whole valley and go to all those houses. So I think it's easier for the candidates when it's split up. I don't know. I'm not running for election to represent the people in Valencia and Saugus. I'm running in this election to represent the whole valley of Santa Clarita, and most important, the students.
Talk about some of your priorities if you get elected and become a board member.
Well, I think whoever gets elected, regardless if it's myself, excuse me, or whoever the slate is that's elected and will be voted in November, is their biggest priority is the CEO is no longer there, which used to be the chancellor. Now there's an interim, what they're calling a president. And David Andrus is that person. I don't know David Andrus. I don't know. He may be the best possible candidate, but what I do know is that this college needs to do a nationwide search. We have one of the best colleges in California, if not the nation, and we need to have the best possible CEO with experience that has administration that can reunite the whole community, the faculty, the staff, the teachers, the school, and make this college move forward in a positive way. Our biggest responsibility is going to be hiring that new CEO.
Yeah, and creating a vision. There's no question. As KHTS has taken many trips to Sacramento with
I've attended.
Diane Van Hook, and also to Washington, D.C., and we've seen the work she's done over the years. It's been incredible to see the growth of that college, and it's all really because of her vision to begin with. And so it's, I think, critical at this point with her leaving and a number of other administrators leaving. In fact, I think you were talking with me, Scott, how many years are of experience left the college in the last few months?
Well, I've heard comments there was a trustee meeting with all the joint schools that I was at, and it was mentioned by Miss Alonso that she doesn't understand why everybody is so worked up because 2 people decided to retire. Well, there's much more than 2 people that have retired. In the recent months, there's 6 main people that are not there anymore with 125 years of experience and no succession plan to fulfill those positions. They're gone. There's no contact with them. When I ran a business and my manager left, we left on a good relationship, and my new manager was able to call and work with them. That's not the situation today at COC, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and it's critical that there be some kind of handoff, and for us not to have a handoff, I think it is going to create lots and lots of problems. I wrote an editorial about a month ago about the unions, not just for COC, but also for our high school, the William S. Hart District, and for our elementary schools. The unions now are pouring so much money into the campaigns, and because of that, it's not a fair race anymore. What's going on the COC side as far as the unions go in terms of donating money?
Well, the unions are definitely supporting and backing the existing trustees that are there now. And it's their right to back whoever they want. And I don't know what's fair, what's not fair. But what's not fair to the community is we don't have some balance. The unions endorsed Miss Alonso, and I'll just refer to Miss Alonso because I'm not running against the other ones. But the unions endorsed her before that 2 days after I registered to run for this position, I got a letter stating that how they endorsed her. I never talked to anybody. They don't know anything about me. In fact, they put out false information about me, that I am a real estate mogul is what they said. My business is indoor soccer. I've never been a real estate mogul, but they're making comments about me that are not true, but that's okay. They need to do what they need to do. Last election in 2020, the unions paid more than 75% of her expenses for it. As of August of this year, at the last filing date, according to her forms, 100% of her money has came from the unions. While you're speaking of that, there was also a comment made at a forum last week that my supporters are supporting me because they're looking for a contract at the college. My three biggest supporters, one's a Republican, one's a Democrat, and that doesn't matter. This is a nonpartisan race, and we want it to stay that way. But my biggest supporter is LA North Studios. LA North Studios, and as well as Mike DiLorenzo at Santa Clarita Studios, and all the studios in this valley provide income to the college. They're not looking for a contract. They send productions there, the productions pay the colleges, and the college brings in income. They're not looking for a contract. The other one is a foundation board member and owns a landscape company. He does not now, nor has ever worked for College of the Canyons. He's not interested in working for College of the Canyons. In fact, he's on the foundation board, and he committed $60,000 for the new ATC building, which included $20,000 a year for the next 3 years, which may be reversed with all of the negative comments and what's going on with the college, as well as other people that are talking about reversing their pledges based on the things that have happened in the recent past.
And I think it's important to state that a balance on the board is what's important. So certainly the union should be behind some faculty or behind some administrators so that there is a balance and teachers or administrators represent part of the board. The challenge is that the unions are putting so much money in, they could end up with 5 members that are, quote, union members, and then there's no balance anymore.
Including the president. The interim president is also a union member who's also donated to the PAC that is paying all this money for them to run. But yes, I agree that, and there will be balance. I mean, Carlos is a union member and an instructor elsewhere, and he will be on the board. He's there for the next 2 years regardless who gets. And I agree that we need balance, we need educators, but we also need business people because the current board members obviously do not know how to read a financial statement, and that's an issue.
Let's talk about the financial statement. We're talking with Scott Schauer here on KHTS. FM 98.1, AM 1220, hometownstation.com. What would you say are some of the key fiscal issues for the college coming up?
Well, I think there's a few things and let's just talk about the recent past. I mean, what happened with the ATC, which is a major issue, which we'll hopefully talk about.
And the ATC stands for what?
The technical center the advanced technical center that they're building over at, there's a temporary one now, and they're building another one.
Got it.
Advanced Technology Center is what the ATC stands for. They were in the process of building one, and that fell apart, and we'll get into that. But you were talking about financial statements and income and expense. The student housing project is a big topic right now for many in the community. And just to give you a little background, the college was awarded a $62 million grant to build a student housing project. The college received this money when there was a surplus right after COVID, and they distributed to numerous colleges, and College of the Canyons applied and received $62 million. And last week, this board of directors decided to send back the $62 million to the state and said because it wasn't fiscally responsible. But the financials, not that I did, but that were presented to them at the board meeting, showed that it is fiscally possible, and it is net positive in the bottom line. When I say talk about reading financial statements, Miss Alonso said that to put this on the college, it's going to cost the college $2 million a year. And I couldn't figure out where she came up with that number. I went home and I looked at the financial statement that she had in front of her, and she's absolutely right. The expenses are $1,950,000 a year. What she failed to mention is there's $2 million and over $2 million in income. It's positive. I mean, that's including all of the expenses, a 5% market vacancy rate. She said that she couldn't vote for something. They weren't even aware of what the insurance cost was on this, was her comment at the board. In fact, she said at the board meeting, I wish he was here because he was looking into the insurance. I look at that financial statement, and on the financial statement, year one, there's $205,000 as an expense for the insurance that she did not know. Jerry Danielson did not know. He said it again last week. We can't vote for something we don't have all the expenses. So, and number one, if they don't have all the information, what are they voting for anyways? I mean, if you don't have the information you need, why did you pass it in the first place? And everything that they're pointing the finger at the administration today, they passed those resolutions and they passed everything. So they need to take some accountability, some responsibility. If anything did not go right, they're equally responsible as everybody else. If they didn't have the information, they should have asked, and they didn't.
And to put it in perspective, I don't know what the current numbers are, but a number of years ago, we were told that there were over 800 students who were homeless at COC, currently enrolled years ago. So that number probably has increased since then.
I've heard many different numbers, and to be quite honest with you, I don't know if anybody has an accurate account of the homeless at COC, but there's a large number, and I've talked to a few of them that also are in big need. I mean, the last president of the ASB sent me an email saying he used to be homeless, and there is a big need, for this. So the need is there. It's just does the college want to provide it? And the bottom line is, I don't think they do.
We're spending time right now with Scott Schauer, who's running for College of the Canyons Board of Trustee Area 2. We're going to take a short commercial break and find out more about his vision for the future here on your hometown station, KHTS 98.1 FM and AM 1220.
98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Early election, pre-election coverage here on your hometown station. Carl Goldman with you, along with Scott Schauer, who is running for College of the Canyons in the district area number 2 against Adele Alonso. We invited both of them to be here, not for a debate, but for a discussion. And no gotchas in there. We were going to give everybody questions ahead of time and get to know the candidates, because I think it's very, very important that we focus on the local elections. All the attention right now is on our national elections, and local is important. Scott, I know you've been here a long time, as we talked about, as have we, and we came here in 1990, and in the early days, using city council, which I think is the most important election that we have, because city council impacts us more than anything here. Absolutely. In Santa Clarita. So in the heyday of the elections of city council, in the early days, it used to be its own election. It wasn't piggybacked onto the November election, and it was in the spring. And in the heyday, the most we ever had was 14% of the voters came and voted for that election. That means only 14% came, and believe me, half of those people didn't know who they voted for. They simply checked off a sex that they wanted to, or the name of their fourth grade teacher reminded them of someone of a candidate. So the reality is that probably only about 6-7% in the most heated election knew who they were voting for, made that decision from a point of research. And so the fear right now is with November occurring, and the presidential race and the Senate race, and then our Congress being so prevalent and so much money thrown in, it's hard when you get down at the bottom of the ballot to get to know about the candidates, which is why this is so important. Why I don't know why Ms. Alonso chose not to be here and start sharing some of her information.
Well, thank God. The nice thing is I have great supporters that have contributed to my campaign, that I'm able to get the message out, and people are aware of what's going on at the college. And also the union is putting out information for her. So I think more so than ever, there's more activity in this college election than maybe ever before. And I think it's good. I think the community needs to know and the community needs to vote.
And as we said earlier in the show, there's 4 candidates up, which is very unusual. Usually there's a total of 5 board members at COC, and usually it's 3 that are up for election, 1 cycle, and then 2 years later it's 2 coming up. But this time we had a unique situation with all 5 board members either being up for election, or in the case of Joan McGregor, she retired but chose to retire a few weeks after the deadline to have an election, so that
was unfortunate, and I'm thankful that Chuck Lyon, when he decided to resign, he resigned properly so it would be on the ballot and the community can decide who's going to take that seat.
Before the break, we were talking about the ATC, and I thought we'd spend a little more time talking about that.
The college currently has an ATC. It's an interim ATC, which I visited and toured, and it's quite impressive. It's 13,000 square feet, but it's still not even half full. The classes are not full. In fact, as I understand, some classes have been canceled. But in the bond money that was provided by our community for the college, ATC was one of the items on that issue. The district plans were to build a 30,000 square foot building, and the one that they were currently planning on before doing, had an opportunity to expand an additional 16,000. So it was 30 with the opportunity to be much more. A piece of property was located and an agreement was made with the local contractor that the local contractor was purchasing the property, starting the entitlements, and building the building for the college.
In fact, the piece of property was going to be right in the middle of town, right by the Cross Valley Connector where Golden Valley intersects with Soledad.
That's exactly where it is. And there was a contract to build that building that was done. That piece of property was purchased for approximately $5 million, a little over a year ago. The board decided they wanted to get out of the contract, and I've heard many reasons why, but none have been confirmed. What I heard Ms. Alonso say is on a recent report that there's a need for 100,000 square foot ATC. The thing she didn't mention is that report was for a standalone ATC that included meeting rooms and a conference center. And you know, and I know that it would be wonderful to have a conference center in Santa Clarita, but it wasn't part of the ATC, and it's not a need or something that the college should be putting their money into. So that was one rumor, that it wasn't big enough to build it, which I don't believe it's true, because they're not fulfilling the classes they are in another building that's a third the size. It was I was told it was improved without tenant improvement costs included. The current board wants to. I heard that this current board and David Andrus has mentioned to a community leader out here that he's going to build the ATC where the student housing project was going to go. I haven't heard that from him. I heard that from somebody else. But then they said it's going to cost an additional $16 million. I requested, what is the additional $16 million they're talking about? Have got no response to that, and they haven't said. They just came up with that number of 16 million. And I requested in a formal letter to David Andrus, can you let me know what it's for? I still haven't heard back from him. The board decided to go a different direction and not use this contractor. So to get out of the contract, they just 2 weeks ago paid over $10 million for a piece of property that was purchased for just about half that, just a little over a year ago.
So let's stop for a second. So you're telling me that they just paid $10 million for a piece of property that was bought for $5 million 1 year ago.
Right, and included in that was the contractor, some of the expenses he used, and some of the permits and the planning, and there was a lot of expenses. I'm sure there was some profit in there for him and for the investors that put up the money to buy the property. I don't know the deal. I haven't seen it. I all I know is what I've heard. But yes, they paid twice. Worse than that is they said at a board meeting that if they don't build on there, because the water line and all of the plans that they've spent already on are not going to be transferable somewhere to somebody else. Nobody else is going to build an ATC there. But the problem is that they not only overspent twice what the value is, they took the money out of the general fund, which puts the college in a lot of trouble. Their reserve fund was 17 million, and now it's 7 million, and they're very close to the percentage where it's going to be a problem with the state that they don't have enough funds. But it was said at the meeting also that they're going to sell this piece of property. They can possibly sell this piece of property for a profit. I'm not a real estate mogul. I have a real estate license, but I'm not a real estate mogul. But I haven't seen many properties that you buy this year for $5 million and sell next year for more than 10. If not, we'd probably be in a different business.
Exactly. Scott, just before this broadcast, you shared a letter that you received from the attorneys at COC, and quite frankly, I'm disturbed by it because it's. Well, I'll let you before I even comment on it. I'm going to let you explain it.
I'm equally disturbed, and this letter came not only to me but the other all four candidates that are not being endorsed by the union. And it's unfortunate that the college decided to spend good funds to have legal action taken against us. And basically what it says is that I am obtaining information from people that are no longer with the school, and that is illegal, and for me to destroy whatever information. Anything that I say to you today, anything that I've heard is on the COC website. That's where I get my information. They're very detailed. It's an amazing website. Kudos to whoever did that. But the website is amazing, and that's where I get my information. Nobody's given me information. I'm getting the information, and I'm doing the research that's needed, so I have the answer. But they told me to delete and destroy all confidential information maintained on any of my electronic devices. Well, for me to destroy it, I'm destroying the website that COC built, and I'm not going to do that. I did not respond to this letter because I have not talked to anybody, and I'm not into this for any other advancement. I'm not a politician. I'm not looking to run for another position at the state later on. I'm doing this to make a difference for the college and help the students.
COC is by no comparison around the country. It is, I think, the premier community college in the United States, but it's really the jewel of Santa Clarita.
No question.
By all, they have now about 29,000 students. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that number changes all the time. But one thing, when you talk about the gem and what the past administration has done, that our current board wants to take credit for all of it, is that school, when I went there, was like 80,000 square feet. Today, that school with 2 different campuses and the interim ATC is almost 1 million square feet. That was done by people that had a vision of the future, that was willing to take the risk to build so they can provide for the students what they need here.
And as you're listening to us, COC impacts Santa Clarita in so many ways. So even if you don't have a student there, and by the way, over half of the Hart students, William S. Hart High School students, matriculate into COC. So it definitely impacts all the kids there. If you have a kid in elementary school, it will impact you over time. But more importantly, COC has in so many ways enriched this community, whether it's property values, and you know this as connected with the realty world, to the business community, to just helping run. I think it's one of the anchors that makes Santa Clarita so great. So for us to not all focus on COC is a sin. We all need to look at COC, make an intelligent decision, get to know the candidates, get to know the issues, and get a better understanding so that as we work our way down the ballot, we're voting from an intelligent standpoint rather than a standpoint of total ignorance.
And there's no question it's the most excellent college, and it's what brought me up to Santa Clarita, and it brings a lot of people, and you're talking about people moving up here. A lot of people move up here for the education in the school districts, not just the college, but all the way down, K through 12, all the way through, that we have great schools up here. And it's too bad that a few people are making changes and sending back money that belongs to the students. Everything that they've done that I'm really opposed or I'm against is taking away services to students, and that's what the college is there. Our staff is very important. Our faculty is important, and we have a great faculty and staff. I'm not against the faculty and staff, and it's great that they're well paid for, and they are well paid. But I think the truth of the matter is the college is there to build a workforce and to provide classes for students so they can get out of college and move on with their life and have a successful career, whatever they decide to do.
Part of the motivation for some of the waves that have taken place at COC and the change in administration came from a survey called the Climate Survey that I believe was done last year. And that has caused not just ripples, really a whole tidal wave of things happening. Talk about that a little bit, Scott.
Yeah, I've heard much about the climate survey, and I have a copy of it, and it's very lengthy. And I believe that a climate survey is good. I also believe that in any organization, and the larger the organization, the more people that may not be satisfied with everything that the management is doing. So I understand there were comments from some people. 90% of the people that took that survey, I was told, say they are happy working at College of the Canyons. 90%. A few people were disgruntled. The problem is they're picking and choosing what they want to look at the survey. I'm not here to defend anyone. I'm not sure there was much, I don't really know, and I don't want to make comments, and it's not public knowledge why this survey created all these major changes. But the board made a decision based on that survey in the last few months that right now there's 6 administrators that are no longer there, retired, let go, fired, all different reasons for why they're not there. The ones replacing the past administrators can't even reach out to them, as we talked about before. What I do know in the climate survey, and what really pointed out, it just stuck out to me real big, was they did a leadership effectiveness. And this is what the numbers were. Administration leadership effectiveness was 44%. The Board of Trustees leadership effectiveness was 48%, virtually the same number. So the bottom line is the board is responsible, and the board and the interim president have made many changes at the college, but I think it's time for them to look in the mirror. If they want to point to the finger at what's wrong at the college, they approved everything that the administration put before them. I have Adele Alonso's record, and she's only voted no less than 20 times in 8 years on anything that was brought before her at the board. And then she goes back and points the finger and says she doesn't get the proper information. If you need the proper information, when I was on a board and if things came up and we didn't have an answer for what insurance costs, or where could this harm us in any way, we ask the hard questions, and you need to know what those questions are, and they're not being asked. But instead, they're just pointing the finger that what happened in the past is the past administration's problem, and they don't take any accountability for their part of it. And they voted for all of the issues that they're now making a problem out of.
Also, the 10% of the negative that came out in the climate survey that you're talking about, Scott, the board members have told me personally, a few of the board members, when that survey did come out, that they were shocked at this, which to me means they must have been participating in a total vacuum, because for them to not go out and talk to various people around the college and find that 10% who are unhappy and get some kind of feedback, it means that they're working in a bubble.
Yeah, Carl, when I closed, we had to close down for almost a year the soccer center during COVID, when you were going through what you went through too. And at the time, I had 90 employees. And I will assure you, if you did a climate survey of the 90 employees, some of them are not going to be happy. And some of them are not going to like me, but it doesn't mean that I'm not doing the right job or I'm not doing what is proper. It means that they're not happy, and it's good that we're able to look at it. The truth of the matter, a survey is a generalization. 90% of the people are happy. A few boisterous people say a few things, and there's been some pretty bad actions taken because of the voice of a few people.
Those wise words coming from Scott Schauer. He is running for Board of College of the Canyons for area number 2. Be sure to go out and vote. We have less than 2 weeks till all of us have to have our ballots in. So if you have your ballot now, it would be wise to turn it in early and get that early voting in. This is Carl Goldman. We're going to wrap things up with Scott in a minute or two, take a short break here on KHTS FM 98.1, AM 1220, yourhometownstation.com.
98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Your hometown station, Carl Goldman with you, along with Scott Schauer, local businessman, community leader, been around a long time and is, I don't know, you're crazy enough to run for board of COC. You're a better man than I am.
Well, you're not the only one that says that, let me tell you.
You sent a letter to David Andrus, who's the interim president of the college right now. Got a partial response, but not everything. Why don't you elaborate on that?
Yeah, after the last board meeting, I still had some questions, and he said at the board meeting, if anybody in the community has questions, please address. If I did not address them, let me know, and I will address them. So I just asked them 5 simple questions on items that they should know before they vote to cancel the ATC, pay double the price for a piece of property that they shouldn't have, before they send back $62 million to the state. And just real quickly, some of the questions. One of them, it was stated they didn't want to do the ATC because it was an additional $16 million. My question was, do they have details on what that $16 million is? Where did they come up with an additional $16 million? That question's never been answered. This letter went to him almost 2 weeks ago today. Another question I asked was, sending back the $62 million, when was the deadline? They said now, and I think it's been now for a long time. There's numerous colleges that have got these grants, and we are the only college that are sending the money back to. Most of them, some of them have already built, and some of them had infrastructure before, and they're adding on with these funds. But the problem is COC can't figure out how to do it, yet everybody else has. And why is COC the only school to send back $62 million? I asked them if they did a pro forma with fewer beds. This originally started out with 220 beds, but for them to make it come into that $62 million range, they lowered it to 209 to cut some of the cost. And I asked them, is there a pro forma? Did you try it with 200? They came up with, I did get an answer to that, and they said, well, if it's 150 beds, it's not going to make sense. And obviously it doesn't. Your expenses are going to stay there, and your income's going to go down. So you don't want to reduce it in half. It wouldn't make sense. I understand that. But the truth is, they don't want a 24/7 campus. I don't think the administration does, and I don't think our board of trustees do. And if that's the case, and I understand issues with that, and there are issues with a 24/7 campus, but what this board needs to do is be honest, come to the table and say, we don't want it here because of this. They said the reason they don't want it there is because it's going to cost the college $2 million a year. Well, they didn't mention that they're bringing in $2.1 million. It's fiscally, it's net positive. There's no reason financially this can't be built other than there's like a 3% shortfall on building the building. But in any building or any construction you do, you need to make, if you remodeled your house, you have a budget, and you need to make a few changes to stay within that budget. Well, the college needs to do the same thing. They had $62 million plus $3.5 million they've already earned in interest, so they had $65.5 million on a $67 million project. And instead of figuring out how do we cut 3%, they sent the $62 million back. That's just unfortunate. Other questions that I asked him real quick. was about the interest, and I said, will that interest continue to accrue? And the way that the structure's set up, that the interest will stop when they receive the bond money. So he answered that, and I appreciate that. And the last one was them expressing their ongoing commitment to exploring alternative solutions and other funding opportunities to support affordable student housing. If you can't do it when somebody hands you $65 million, how are you possibly going to build student housing ever? Because that money is not going to be available again. This state, as you know, is in a little bit of trouble, and we're in a deficit. The only reason that money came out is because there was a surplus and there's a housing issue, and they were trying to solve some of that by having these colleges build these facilities. But the truth is, they don't want it. They just need to say, we don't want it. But don't put it on the financial, and why send back that money it's not coming out of our local taxes. It was state fund money that was sent to the college.
Scott, I appreciate you coming here and joining us. And for those who are just tuning in, if you're wondering why the last hour has been all Scott all the time, it's because we've invited both Scott and his opponent, Adele Alonso, to join us, and join us not in a debate. We were going to sit down and have a dialogue, ask questions, know I got yous. We were going to provide the questions ahead of time, and for whatever reason, she decided to not join us. If after listening to this, I'm sure she's glued to hearing your response and pick it apart. If she wants to come join us for another session, would you be part of that?
Any day, anytime. I think the community needs to know both sides, and I think we need to be transparent, and we need to answer the hard questions. And if you don't show up, you don't have to answer them, and she's not showing up.
Can you summarize, we only have a couple minutes left, why someone should be voting for you, Scott Schauer, and not Adele Alonso?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think one of the main reasons is this Board of Trustees needs somebody with some business experience. They don't have it on the board currently. Danielson does own a music company, as I understand, so I shouldn't say they don't have business experience, but they haven't had the experience to run a budget like this. I mentioned at the last forum that this is a business, and Adele said, you're wrong. This is a learning institution. It's not a business. We are responsible for a $149 million budget. I don't care who you are. If you have that responsibility, it is a business. My relationship with the community, both business and leaderships, and as you know, I've been endorsed by everybody on the city council and a lot of past representatives that you have worked with for years and years. I have my pulse. I have my finger on the pulse of what's going on in this community, and I think that we need somebody like that on the board. I want to put the students first, not the union. The union is important. The faculty and the staff are important. Advancing everything at the college is important. Administration, the buildings, faculty, staff, the janitors, all the way down. But the most important thing about that school is the students, and we need somebody that's going to make the students a priority. She says yes without doing the research. I'll do the research. I will not say yes to every issue that comes before me because I don't want to ruffle feathers. I want to do what's best for the college and the students. Never in 8 years, I've been involved in this community, as you know, for a long time. Never in 8 years at any event I ever went to did I meet Adele Alonso. And I go to a lot of events in the community. We need somebody that's active in the community to help run the community college. I could go on, and I know you're running out of time. So,
well, I really appreciate you joining us and being part of this discussion. And I think it's important for everybody to work your way around the ballots. If you go to the hometownstation.com, we've right at the center of the homepage have a link to our list of endorsements. Doesn't mean you have to follow that, but at least read through it so you understand it and understand our thinking from it, and whether you agree with us or disagree with us. It's important for you to go out there and get the information and get the knowledge before you hit the ballot box. And so I thank you for joining us and being part of this. And we look forward to...
I thank you, and I appreciate it, and I sure do hope that we, Adele and myself, come back and visit you. And I don't want a contentious issue. All I want to do is discuss what's going on and understand why they made decisions. If they would be transparent, maybe my mind would change on a lot of things, but they're not saying why, and they're hiding behind the Brown Act of why they cannot say why.
And as we said, I think having a balance on the school board is critical. Just as we've seen what's happened in Sacramento by having a supermajority on one side, no matter which side of the aisle you're from. It's not a good thing. To have a check and balance system is important, and I think it's really important that we have a balance on the COC school board. This has been Carl Goldman, Scott Schauer, KHTS FM. 98.1 AM 1220, yourhometownstation.com.